Travel back in time to the 80s, reliving the laughter. The heroes.
Pick up your phone and call the professionals. Go, Ghostbusters.
And the honesty.
What's up, Norm? My nipples. It's freezing out there.
Because just like you, we're stuck in the 80s.
Sure, it's not 1985 right now, but who knows what tomorrow will bring.
Hey, welcome to Stuck in the 80s. It's your host, Steve Spears.
And Jen with one N.
And today we have a new wave album, Showdown. 2 records that were released 40 years ago this month.
It's our tribute to Dare by the Human League and Speak and Spell by Depeche Mode.
When I'm with you, baby, I go out of my head, and I just can't get enough,
Hey everybody, by now you know the podcast is a longtime partner with the 80s Cruise. And though the 2022 voyage sold out months ago, a bunch of cabins recently opened up, so you have another shot at coming along with us. If you haven't heard, the trip is in March 2022. It's on the Royal Caribbean Mariner of the Seas. It's a 7-day cruise to the Caribbean, just like the kind mom and pop take. The lineup, though, that's what really makes it special. This time it'll have the Human League, ABC, Berlin, 38 Special, Belinda Carlisle, Morris Day and the Time, Modern English, Dire Straits Legacy, Flock of Seagulls, John Parr, and I'm not kidding, like 10 more bands, 50 performances in total. It's insane.
Crazy, insane?
Insane? Crazy?
Also, hosted by the MTV VJs, Alan Hunter, Mark Goodman, Nina Blackwood. They're amazing, and they'll be like your BFFs all week. Brad and I will be there too. That's right! We'll be hosting trivia sessions, judging costume contests, which is always my favorite night.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
And we'll do some recording of some live podcasts. And now you can come too, and even get a $200 cabin credit when you book with the promo code STUCK. Find out more at www.the80scruise.com. Hey, Jen with one N is here. She's been on the cruise.
I've been on the cruise twice. And it's funny, as you were saying the MTV VJs, the memory that instantly popped into my mind was singing My Sharona at karaoke and then dancing with Alan Hunter at the guitar break. So it's an amazing time, guys. if you haven't booked a room and you're thinking about it, now's the time. Now is the time.
I saw on Facebook the other day that Princess now is doing like this 80s cruise, but it's like 5 cover bands. That's all it is.
Oh.
And people are all like, whoa, this is so exciting. And so I posted in there something, well, how about check out the real 80s cruise? And I posted a link, and people, all these little gobsmacked little reactions, from people who hadn't heard of it yet.
Wow.
If you listen to SiriusXM 80s on 8, I think they still promote the cruise there too. But it sold out like a year ago. And then, COVID. And so time passes. Now, there is a vaccine mandate to come on the cruise, and that's why there's the opportunity for these free cabins that have opened up. But it's still going to be amazing. I've talked to so many of the bands that are coming on it, and a lot of them, it's their first cruise, and so they're super excited as well. So I can't believe it's only, 5 months away now?
Yeah, that's not a lot of time to plan your outfits, people. So you need to get on it. I'm thinking too, like Modern English, they were on the first ever 80s cruise, and they came and did a trivia session with Stuck in the 80s, and that was super fun. And then later on, they were like dancing at the club all the time. So you really do get to get, chummy with these folks.
Yeah, they're there. I mean, they're standing right in line with you. Whatever you do, they're doing it with you. It's fun. So today, Back to the Future or Back to the Present?
No. Let's get stuck. I'm about had it with this year. I'm so happy to be stuck in the 80s again for a couple of minutes anyway.
It really does. Last night, me and future wife were here. I'm in New York right now, and we were watching. She just got a new Roku stick for her thing, and so there's a bunch of flashback 80s channels where you can just do nothing but watch 80s videos all night long.
Ooh.
And we happily, joyfully watching these videos for hours and hours. And it really did feel like an escape, a much, much needed escape.
Oh, bitch, and is this in 3D? No, but your face is.
So October 1981, 40 years ago, young Spearsy at this point is 14 years old. How old would you have been, Jen?
Gosh, I guess I would have been like 8. 8 or 9, yeah.
So, interesting time in music, especially for the people making new wave. Now, there's a lot of albums that came out this month that we could salute, but Jen and I kind of zeroed in on these two, which were really breakthrough albums for these bands. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to hear a lot of drum machines today.
Yay.
A lot of synthesizers, a lot of electronics. It's going to be fun. We're each going to represent just one album from that month. We'll play you a few songs, some obvious hits and some deep cuts. And there are no winners, there are no losers, just lots of good music. Ready to get started?
Let's do it.
My album is The Human League, Dare.
Don't you want me? You know I can't believe it when I hear that you won't see me. Don't you want me? You know I don't believe you when you say that you don't need me. It's what you let find. You think you've changed your mind? You better change it back or we will both be sorry. Don't you want me, baby? Don't you want me? Oh, don't you want me, baby? Don't you want me? Oh.
Boy, this song is kind of stuck in your brain, isn't it?
Yeah, my daughter is 11 and she knows all the words. And she knows all the
Really?
like postures too, like when she takes on the different characters.
You know, the sad thing about this song is back in like the mid 80s when there was dance clubs in Tampa Bay that you could go to that were teens only, this song would always be played. And this was the one song that I chose to try to dance to because I always thought if you're gonna cozy up to a girl, I mean, who wouldn't want to have this song and lip sync to them? And so that was my shtick.
That was your move.
Don't you want me? I had no idea that the song is really, you know, I mean, it ends up being Love Gone Bad, and I should have known. It should have been a harbinger of how things would go for me for the next few decades.
Yeah, you don't know that when you're a teen, though. You know it later on, like when you're in your 20s or maybe even 30s.
Yeah, after Love Has Gone Wrong a couple dozen times.
Exactly.
Dare was the band's third studio album, and it was released in October 81 in the UK. It didn't come out in the US until the middle of 82. But it's the one album that gives them the sound that they're known for today. Right prior to this album being recorded, founding members Martin Ware and Ian Craig Marsh left. They would go on and form Heaven 17. So that leaves Phil Oakey. He brings two dancers on board, two women he saw at a club who ended up being their background singers. So this is the first album where you see the classic lineup. And weird fact about this album, legend has it that the legendary music critic Lester Bangs died of an accidental drug overdose while listening to this album.
Oh my God.
I know. It's kind of a weird thing to carry around with you if you're Philip Oakey and the rest of the gang.
Yeah, it's troubling.
Pitchfork did like a retrospective review of it last year, and they said, Dare isn't remembered for the darkness that engulfs its middle, but for the frozen glow of its singles, which presaged the dawning of a new era in pop music, one where synthesizers and drum machines processed the flutter and ache of crushes, romance, and heartbreak. Aw.
Yeah, that's good writing. I have to say that's true. And I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't just describe Dare as that, right? Like you were saying that these two albums are really set the sound for these two bands, but also for this this kind of music, right? Like it really lays out a nice template for new wave.
Well, tell us about your album, because I think it's similar in so many ways.
Yeah, so the album that I have is called Speak and Spell by Depeche Mode.
We walk together, we're walking down the street. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. Every time I think of you, I know we have to meet. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. It's getting hotter, it's a burning love, and I just can't seem to get enough.
have a bit of a Depeche Mode confession / caveat to make here. So I mentioned I was 8 years old when Speak and Spell came out. I like Depeche Mode. I love many of their songs, but I know that there are Depeche Mode like fans, hardcore fans out there that know so much more about the band. And so my introduction to Depeche Mode was one of the best compilation albums ever, Catching Up with Depeche Mode, which my best friend in 6th grade, her big sister Liz, who was in high school, introduced me to. And I listened to Catching Up like every day, like 5 times a day or something like that. So that's where my first, introduction to Depeche Mode came. And there are a couple of songs on Speak and Spell that were on Catching Up. And then also like later on in high school, their live album 101. Do you remember that album, Steve?
Oh yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody was issued that album like by law.
Yeah, exactly. So, I wanted to put that out there that I'm no expert on Depeche Mode, but I am a fan. I did get some great reward in 1984 because I was a little older then, and I could choose albums from Tower Records or whatever. So I do, still love Depeche Mode, and I did sing Somebody to my daughter as a lullaby as she grew up. So I have my tiny little Depeche Mode credentials.
She's going to be such an amazing adult when she grows up, given all the work you've done with her.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to Speak and Spell. This was Depeche Mode's debut album. It peaked at number 10 in the UK. And probably Depeche Mode fans know this, but it was the only Depeche Mode album with Vince Clarke as a member. He co-founded the band. He actually wrote most of the songs for the band. And then he left, kind of like your story with Human League. He left to form Yaz or Yazoo with Alison Moyet. And then later on, he formed Erasure with Andy Bell. So Vince Clarke was huge, obviously, in forming what would become New Wave, but he started here with Depeche Mode. So, I have to tell you this. This was interesting. So this is a rumor. I don't know. Maybe someone can write in and tell me if they have any evidence for this or if it's just apocryphal. But one of the reasons that Vince Clarke left Depeche Mode was because of a disagreement over his song Only You. Huh. You know that song, right? It's such a beautiful, it's one of my favorite like romantic songs. So evidently the other people in the band didn't want to record it. And that's why he left.
I bet that's pretty more commonplace than we think.
Yeah. It's so funny that would be the song that would put them over.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every album that we research, I remember there's always one song that ends up being a huge hit that the band never even wanted released as a single.
Right.
And, Human League's no different in that respect. I believe there's a song on this album that they didn't want released. It might have been Don't You Want Me, come to think of it.
Huh. Yeah. So Speak and Spell received pretty positive reception. And I'm going to read some quotes from English writers, but Paul Morley of the New Musical Express described the album as, quote, generous, silly, susceptible, electro-tickled pop. Electro-tickled pop.
Fantastic.
Love it. And then Rob White, who was writing for the Christchurch Press, called the music, quote, instant pop, instantly disposable. And he sort of dismissed the album as tedious, which I have to say, I kind of get it. I wouldn't describe it as tedious, but it is repetitive. But I kind of think repetitive is what makes it work. So here's an example. The song that probably is the most popular song on the album is Just Can't Get Enough. And this song made the top 10 in the UK. And P.S. was one of my favorite songs on Catching Up, and probably their entire catalog, actually. I would put this in my top 3 Depeche Mode songs.
It's weird. I think when you look at Depeche Mode still tours pretty regularly now, and their set list usually leans way more to the newer material.
Sure.
Than I would like it to. But sometimes we still get to hear this one. Sometimes they'll still play this one. If they're going to play one from the first album, it's going to be this one. And they'll play it towards the very, very, very end of the set list.
Yeah, right.
So
when people
don't get into your car until you hear this song.
Right, exactly. And then what I learned, too, is that this was Depeche Mode's first single to be released in the U.S. In February of 1982. And Here's a little trivia. It was the only Depeche Mode video that Vince Clarke ever appeared in.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I watched the video just before the show, so yeah, there he was.
So good, right? They're all babies. Right? They're like Dave Gahan looks like he's literally 14 years old.
Yeah.
They look so young.
They were.
Yeah.
They were.
They were. Yeah, right. And the clothes were just amazing. So if you are going to go on that cruise, I would refer to that. There might be some ideas there for you.
Back to Human League. who actually will be on the cruise. So that's kind of cool. So some of these songs we'll hear. It's one of these weird albums that has songs that have little infamous side stories about them. They, at this time, were almost kind of a combination of Spandau Ballet and ABBA. And so on this record, on Dare, all the singles were labeled either red or blue to help the buyers differentiate between whether it's more for Spandau Ballet lovers or for ABBA lovers. And so literally, this next song was the first song to be designated red. This is Sound of the Crowd. It's kind of weird to have the whole red versus blue, but whatever works. I mean, I would never have thought about Human League with an ABBA influence, but there it is.
Yeah, I think disco's all throughout New Wave, honestly.
Yeah, it's disco fixed,
right?
So
poor disco.
But just like I always thought, Pet Shop Boys was disco for smart people. So, to some degree, that's the same way with New Wave, I think. Interesting song. It was one of their. I think it was their first big hit, really, and it's not the deepest song lyrically. In fact, at some points, it's completely confusing. Make a shroud pulling combs through a backwash frame, or
sounds like a Duran Duran song.
Yeah, it does. Stroke a pocket with a print of a laughing sound. So there you go.
And I'm hungry like the
wolf. Yeah, somewhere Simon Le Bon's writing this stuff down.
Oh my gosh.
But this is one of those ones that when you see them live, they'll still play this. God love them. What's your first deeper cut?
My deeper cut is a song called "What's Your Name."
Everybody seems to look your way now. Everybody seems to look your way. Everybody wants to know your name. Hey, what's your name? Feeling right, just tonight. Didn't say you're out of sight. Hey, you're such a pretty boy. Hey, you're such a pretty boy. Hey, you're such a pretty boy, so pretty.
And so here Depeche Mode exhibits the repetitiveness that I referred to earlier. It's so funny. I'm really grateful that I was able to, I want to say revisit this album, but honestly visit this album. It was really fun to listen to Speak and Spell for a while. And I think I'm going to keep it in rotation because it's a good working album actually, because it is kind of, poppy, I guess, and upbeat. But I love this song. It does not sound like Depeche Mode. In fact, when I first heard the opening notes, I thought it sounded like Yaz, a lot like Yaz.
Yes.
And so when I was listening to it, I was sort of tapping into like 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 13-year-old Jen, and that girl loves this song. Like it's kind of a ridiculous, silly song, but something about it just made me feel really happy and made me smile. I will say that in a 2005 interview, Martin Gore and keyboardist Andy Fletcher, they both said that this was their least favorite Depeche Mode song of all time.
All time?
I was like, oh, it's the one I picked. So I think that's pretty funny. And I can see why, right? Because they went on to write much darker stuff, both in tone and lyrics and even the music itself. So I get it. This is like anti-Depeche Mode in some ways. But what's funny is I was thinking about it, right? Like despite the lyrics, and there's also a song on the album called Go Boy Go. And I started thinking like, was anyone in Depeche Mode gay? Because I don't remember that being the case. And so I just did a little digging and Vince Clarke also wasn't gay. But what was interesting, what I came across was that the band Pansy Division, they covered this song, What's Your Name, in 1995. And they're mostly gay and very out and proud. And they picked their songs pretty strategically. But take a listen to the What's Your Name by Pansy Division, because sort of their hard rockin' guitars and their drums actually, I think, makes the song really work. So maybe synths were the groundwork for this song, but I think Pansy Division got it right when they kind of rocked it up.
My last deep cut for Dare, which by the way is an album that the band loves too, and I think they did a big anniversary tour a bit back, maybe on the 25th anniversary, where they came out and they played the whole album, and those are always fun tours to see. I always like to catch those because some of these songs they probably never played the first time around, so they're having to learn them. But I gave you a red song the first time. I'm going to give you a blue song this time. This is Open Your Heart. This is my other. I hesitate to even call it a deep cut because it's seriously probably my favorite song on the album. And back in 2007, I think it was, there was the Regeneration tour that was going around the country, and it had almost everybody that's on the cruise this year. It had Human League, ABC, Belinda Carlisle, Flock of Seagulls, and Naked Eyes, and the Human League were I guess the headliners per se. Yeah. And this was the song where I was just like, oh my God, where's this band been? Like, why didn't I embrace them when I was, in 1981? And then I remembered 13, 14-year-old Steve was listening to AC/DC and Journey and Triumph, and not
red or blue.
Yeah. Black. Very gray. And so this was it. This was to me the song that transitioned me over, and I really enjoy this one. And smash. Why can't I say smash today? Smash. There's no. It's not a Yiddish song. Smash Hits magazine wrote about this song at the time. Quote: "You have to give the band their due. From being considered no-hopers, which by the way is super cruel.
Yeah.
They're now Virgin's biggest financial hope. This is a number one. It's got everything. Strong chorus, instant appeal, and dreamboat topping."
Lovely.
Lovely. It's like whipped cream. Miracle Whip.
In getting ready for this episode, I watched Open Your Heart because I was like, I don't know if I'm familiar with this song. So I watched the original video from 1981. And then right afterwards, YouTube served me up another one. I think it might have been from the Regeneration tour. It said 2006, so it was around the same time. But I watched that one, and it was them doing it again. And I loved it because in the first one, Philip had asymmetrical hair and red lipstick, and the girls were like, I loved their clothes too. But then cut to 2006, and he's completely bald. Looks fantastic. I don't know what he did with his skin, but it was beautiful. And then the two dancers / backup singers. And it was just really cool to kind of see them then and see them now. And I think Philip and the whole band probably was so appreciative of the fans there, because at the end of that performance, he was thanking them, and he was like, I shouldn't be here right now. I should be driving a taxi. Our fans are everything. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. He was so grateful. And it was a really nice, it was a nice moment.
Yeah. I interviewed him during that tour, and he was just the nicest guy. And British musicians always give the best interviews. They're always very gracious and very polite and very humble. And it's a pretty big difference between doing one of those interviews and then interviewing someone usually who came up in the 80s in America. But
yeah. Well, it's funny. I was
feeling like a total jerk feeling like to say that.
It's funny because I was listening to another podcast, and the host was saying that he thinks it's unfair because all British actors and personalities and stuff, for some reason, they're also funny. They shouldn't be funny, and they don't have to be funny, but they're just funny. And I think that may be part of it too, is the sort of a wit that is fun to play with.
Yeah. That's why we love them so much. That's why we still watch The Crown, which I was watching literally right before we started the podcast.
Oh my goodness. Getting into the spirit.
Yeah. I just can't get enough. Anyways, your turn. What's your final deep cut for Depeche Mode?
So my last pick is kind of on the album. Let me explain. So it's Dreaming of Me. Now, this song was also on Catching Up, which is how I learned about it, along with Just Can't Get Enough and another song called New Life. But Dreaming of Me was their debut single, and it was not commercially released in the US. So Dreaming of Me did not originally appear on Speak and Spell in the UK version, but it was on the original pressing in the US instead of the song I Sometimes Wish I Was Dead, which is a very upbeat song, by the way.
Yes.
Ironically, right? So then on the 2006 re-release of Speak and Spell, Dreaming of Me was put at the end of the album as a bonus track with all the original UK track lists preceding it.
Oh,
Did
nice.
everybody get that?
Yeah. I've diagrammed your sentence and it's complete gibberish.
Wonderful. So some way or another, Dreaming of Me is on this album. And this was a kind of a fun story that I learned about. In 2011, at the 30-year anniversary of the song Dreaming of Me, when it was first released in the UK, there was a flash mob action that tried to put the track back into the charts by downloading online. And it failed everywhere except for in Germany. So in Germany, the song entered the singles chart for the first time at number 45. So good job, Germans.
Yeah. The first time anyone's ever said that. It's funny. I was listening to these songs back to back, Dreaming of Me and What's Your Name? And I swear if you bred them together, their offspring would be Just Can't Get Enough. I mean, there's elements of both. So
yeah, that's possible. Very possible. I feel like there's a lot of inbreeding in the songs in this album.
Well, it is British. I don't know. Anyway, that's mean too. But you know what else would be mean if we didn't do it on this podcast?
The Seggies.
It's time for TV Party Tonight. We'll play a snippet of a theme song from a TV show in the 80s. If you get it right, you're entered into a drawing for some swag. Usually it's a postal-friendly bottle opener, but I'm sure no one's gotten one of those recently because Brad is still here in New York, probably 30 blocks from where I am right now. He's probably working today. It's a Saturday morning. I guarantee you he's probably been there since 4 a.m. And I guarantee you his head is ready to explode.
Godspeed, Brad.
Yeah. But when he gets back to L.A., which will be soon, the people who have won the poster-friendly bottle openers will receive them. However, this was the one where we're going to randomly select 5 winners to get a copy of Annie Zaleski's new book, Duran Duran Rio.
You almost said Annie Lee. Sorry, you almost said Annie Leibovitz, didn't you?
I know. Yeah. I read the book. It's amazing. And we talked to her. She's been on the show twice now. She talked about the book on the first one, and then the second time she came on and talked about the Rolling Stone list of 500 best songs of all time. So yeah, she's fantastic.
She is. She knows her stuff.
She is. So pay attention. From episode 614, here was the mystery theme song.
And if you threw a party.
Yep, that's Golden Girls.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant. And if you threw a party, you invited everyone you knew.
You know, I mean, I realize that everybody who listened to this episode got this one right.
I think people who didn't hear the episode got it right.
Yeah. I got emails from people I've never heard from before. I'm still kind of amazed because, to be honest, I thought I'd picked a somewhat obscure part of the song. I was wrong. And I don't know anyone. I mean, Brad and I didn't watch this show. I'm sure you did, right?
I did because I was a kid with no license or ability to go out anywhere. So this was on Saturday night. So what are you going to do? You're going to watch Golden Girls and Empty Nest.
I'll tell you what I'm going to watch tonight when we get to the What's Your Age's Obsession. That'll be fun. But so I would read the list of everybody who submitted the name correctly, but we would be here for the rest of the day. What you really want to know is who actually won a copy of the book. So the winners are
Jesse El Gato Grande Smith, Jacquelina from Seattle, Ron Houston, Joe in Athens, and Debbie H. from Mission Viejo.
So please send in your postal-friendly address, and I will try to get those books out to you soon. that might be a struggle for me too. I'm in New York right now. The books are in Florida. I'm getting married in 4 weeks, and time's running out. So this might be the last live show you hear before future wife becomes just
Actual wife, yeah.
Actual wife. We do need a nickname for her to use on the show after that happens. So if anyone has a suggestion, by all means.
I have one. I have an idea. I'll share it with you in private.
Oh, okay.
See if it resonates.
Okay, we'll do. But anyone else have a suggestion, send it in. And whoever, if anyone actually comes close to getting it out, we'll send you some swag. We might even send you a shirt. In the meantime, no need to spin any wheels. We'll get right to the next challenge. Pay attention. See if you know this TV theme song. If you know it, email us at podcast@SAT80s.com and tune in a few weeks to find out if you're a winner. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horathon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, silver shamrock.
And we're back. We have just a few minutes left. I know if Jen's here, she's going to want to play What's Your 80s Obsession? Jen, what's your 80s obsession?
How did you know? So I have some more 80s content for your ears. I have a couple of podcasts. One was introduced to me by listener Robert L. Thank you for turning me on to this because it really made a drive much more pleasant. It's the podcast, and I know there's been a lot of movie stars and other celebrities doing podcasts. So Rob Lowe has one. Did you know that?
I did.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it yet.
It's pretty good. So it's called Literally with Rob Lowe. So the one episode that I have listened to, and I have a bunch more in the queue, is Rob Lowe's interview with Molly Ringwald.
Wow.
Yeah, it is.
Were they ever in a movie together? I don't think they were in a movie together.
I don't think they were. They certainly they probably lived 6 blocks away from each other or something.
Yeah.
But they, their paths have crossed. Oh, wait, actually, they say this in the podcast, and I do remember it. They were in Stephen King's The Stand miniseries.
That's right. That's right. I do remember that. Rob Lowe had a memorable role, but does he not? He's a mute, is he?
Exactly. Yeah, he's a mute. He's a mute. So it's a great interview. It's really fun. It's super personable. They obviously have a familiarity and a comfort with each other. So I think it's a different kind of interview. It's got a real sort of, we're just eavesdropping on their Zoom call quality, So that's Literally with Rob Lowe and his interview with Molly Ringwald. Check it out. And then the second one, I always mention Hit Parade because I always love Hit Parade, but it's a Slate podcast. And this is an episode about Bruce Springsteen. So it's a 2-parter unless you pay money, but it's nice and long, as a lot of these are. And it's called Tramps Like Us. And I've always been sort of peripherally a fan of Bruce Springsteen. Just sort of, I don't know. I've never been a huge, I don't know what you call them, Bruce believer, Springsteen head. I don't know.
I don't think they have names.
Yeah, that was back in the day when you just liked a person's music. But so the podcast is wonderful. It really digs in. It spends a lot of time on 80s Bruce, obviously, and it's so fascinating. It talks about how he influenced a lot of things in the 80s, which I think was the most interesting part of it. Yeah. So unlike a lot of podcasts, when I listen to something about someone who has a memoir out, I'm now I don't have to read the memoir because I've listened to 2 hours of his life or her life.
Yeah.
But now I'm want to read the memoir really bad because it was so fascinating.
Well, Rob Lowe has at least 2 memoirs out, and the first one is amazing. I think it's called Stories I Tell My Friends.
Yep.
And I listened when I was having to drive back and forth 2 hours a day to Disney to work there. I got through a lot of audiobooks, And the one that really stands out to me, two that stand out to me, Rob Lowe and then Bruce Springsteen. And I was never a Bruce Springsteen fan, but I'd heard that it was a good book, and so I started listening to it. And once you kind of get used to his voice, which, you know, it's the same way with every author read memoir. It takes like that one chapter to kind of get used to, you know, Phil Collins or Billy Idol,
right?
Sammy Hagar. But once you got there, and he starts telling us, by the end of the book, I was sobbing in my car, which not unusual coming home from Disney, but
but it was because of the book, not
because of the job. Yeah, exactly. Oddly enough, for the first time ever, I have two obsessions.
No, I'm sorry. You can only have one. Just kidding.
Well, sometimes I have none. I feel bad when I have to make up. Both TV related, because I find lately that the best way to keep my focus on what I'm doing, because I'm working from home, is to have something playing in the background that I'm semi-familiar with, but I don't really need to pay full attention to. Oddly enough, because you know how you go sometimes when you're on Amazon Prime, and you kind of go through the rabbit hole of viewers who like this also watch this.
Right.
Then the viewers of this also watch this. And the next thing you know, you've drilled down 10 movies and you're seeing some movie you didn't know existed. Well, the other day I was drilling down and it said, you should watch this, Mussolini, The Untold Story. And I'm like, what the hell is this? It was a 1985 miniseries on network television. I think it was 5 or 6 episodes long. And it had George C. Scott as Mussolini, which you can buy that. Mm-hmm. Robert Downey Jr. as one of his sons, Gabriel Byrne as his other son, and then Raul Julia as his son-in-law, and literally like 5 other big names that I just didn't have time to remember or write down. And it's just, you're like, I can't. You're seeing these people like Robert Downey Jr. in probably, you know, early 80s. It's just.
Was it good?
It was oddly sympathetic towards someone who was so murderous and evil.
Yeah. The Untold Story.
It tried to make him out to be like not such a complete prick, but I don't know how it got on television. It just, or why all these names agreed to it. It's based on the secret diaries that his son-in-law kept during that period of time, which he was trying to use to bargain for his life at the end of the war, and it didn't quite work out for him. But it's there on Amazon Prime for free if you want to go and like just check it out. If nothing else, just to see these faces so many years ago. And then the other one, my other obsession, we just discovered it last night. Future Wife and I like I said, we were playing with the Roku, and we downloaded the app for Pluto TV. And we were amazed that a lot of 80s TV shows were on there, including every episode of Too Close for Comfort. And we squealed and watched as many episodes as we could until we got tired of the endless commercials for Amazon Go.
Oh, there's commercials.
Yeah, but you know, at the time there would normally be commercials, but still, it's.
I wish they included the actual commercials that would have aired on the air date. That'd be amazing.
Yeah,
I'd pay a lot of money for that, actually.
Yeah. No, but it was fun. It was interesting to see. That gang, and it was pretty. You know, sometimes that kind of comedy doesn't hold up so well decades later, but it did.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I used to watch, I don't know what the deal was, but I used to watch Too Close for Comfort on like Sunday afternoons. Like that's when the syndication played in my town. I don't know if that was like all over the country or just in Las Vegas, but they would play it on Sundays. And I remember thinking I must have been like around 8, thinking how weird that this family, the dad has white hair, the mom has red hair, and then the daughters have black and blonde hair. And I was just so confused by that.
Right.
It was before biology, I guess.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I took biology class. I understand the concept of DNA, and I'm telling you right now, that's not possible. Although I guess it may have been. As I sit here nerding out, thinking about the possibilities. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed our salute to October of 1981. Hard to believe it's 40 years ago. I try not to think about that aspect of it. I just try to enjoy the music. But if like you just can't get enough, remember, at least for a few more weeks until I go on hiatus, we'll be here, hopelessly stuck in the 80s.
Stuck in the 80s is now on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/stuckinthe80spodcast. Special thanks to Check Battery Daily for our theme music, and thanks for listening.